You're listening to the Wealth and Wanderlust podcast, an international finance and personal development podcast for the modern day woman. I'm your host, Vanessa M.W., and I'm here to help you build a better life abroad or in America. You can find out more about my work in finance and travel on wanderonwards.co, or you can say hi on Instagram at wanderonwards. Not all classrooms have four walls, so open your mind to what's possible and let's get started. Hi, everybody. It's Vanessa M.W. from the podcast Wealth and Wanderlust. We have a new episode with an incredible woman. She is the original Wanderlust lost girl. She was doing it before we had the blogs, before we had all these cheats, and I'm shocked and honored to be in her presence. She also has an incredible new book, so I'll let Jess introduce herself, but we are really in for a treat. Jess, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And I will use that as my ringtone or my alarm every morning. That's a lovely introduction and I appreciate you. It's great to be on. So I'm Jess Drucker. And yeah, I did. I lived abroad for 15 years and I did move abroad for the first time, like study abroad in 1999. So if that tells you how long ago, probably some of you were not even born. Man, I get it. In 1999. By the time I was really doing it on my own after study abroad, it was 2001, literally just before September 11th. So if that puts into context how long ago and how many lifetimes ago this all is now, it was a really long time ago. And I did not have all of these wonderful tools that exist today. I actually did write a book. I also have a podcast, if anyone's interested, called Adventure Calls. And this season I am interviewing amazing expats like Vanessa and others who have found success abroad and followed their call to adventure. It is so important to me that people realize that even though it seems so far away for you that you want to live abroad, it seems like something other people do. I want to get to the nitty gritty and talk to people about just like, where'd you get the idea that you could do it? And then how did you make that idea happen? All the hows and the details and the visas and all the things that you think are tripping you up, we can solve. It's really like, how do you get the gumption to go from like, man, I wish I could, to like, I totally do that now. And so those are my goals. And so I wrote a book called How to Move Abroad and Why It's the Best Thing You'll Do. It is all the how-tos, but the why it's the best thing you'll do is the first chapter, because I don't play around. I want you to know why this isn't just a silly dream. This is really like the best thing that you'll do if it's what you want to do.
Absolutely. And I can only verify that because a lot of people, when they first meet me, they're like, oh, that's cute. You're an au pair abroad. And I was like, I've been abroad for 7 years. I work in tech. I have multiple businesses. Like, please don't diminish everything I've had to fight. I've been almost deported twice. So nice. Don't come for me. Right. And what started the move abroad?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm from the suburbs of Chicago and, I didn't know anything about my parents. Certainly, I don't even think we traveled internationally as a kid. I went to California and I can still remember my aunt's husband at the time making plantains and frying bananas in a pan and me being like, what? This is different. I love this. And then plantains were my favorite food. But I was the longest story ever, which I'll make very short, is just that I was getting a C in Spanish in high school, and I don't get C's okay in anything. And I talked to my teacher. I said, how can I get an A? She said, oh, no, honey, you're not going to get an A. I said, well, how could I? And she said, if you hosted a Costa Rican, you could get some extra credit. And if you also aced all your tests, plus that extra credit, you could get an A. So all of a sudden my mom said yes, and we're hosting this guy named Fabio, which at the time was just like, that was the guy on the cover of all those books. It was really funny. It wasn't really that Fabio. We're hosting a Costa Rican named Fabio in my house, and like, whoa, he was so different and so nice and such a different type of person. And when I completed the exchange, so they came for 3 weeks in January to Chicago. Whoever planned that was horribly mistaken. They had bloody noses. It was terrible. We completed the exchange that summer. And for me, that opened up, I was 16, but that opened up my whole world. And so the only thing I had ever been really good at in school, like that I loved, became Spanish. Like I was just good at it for some reason. And so, so then I studied to be a Spanish teacher, had to study abroad as part of that program. And I went back to Costa Rica. And the rest is history from there, really.
Wow, we have a lot in common. I also got a C in Spanish, and I am Mexican American.
Oh, that's
Yes.
not uncommon. That's not anything to feel bad about. I think that's more common
Well,
than you think.
in school, so my Spanish is actually okay today. I think the way we learn languages in America is really disheartening because we get hit with all this grammar. We're discouraged by not being able to conjugate things properly. And then we don't have the confidence to speak, which is how you learn a language. I did a whole year in Chinese. I studied Chinese language and like did my master's in Chinese economics and language. So
Wow.
I am not a dumb girl. But I really, the reason I didn't go and move abroad to Latin America, I really honestly believe is I didn't think I was smart enough to tackle the language, which is such a shame. But water under the bridge, and
Yeah.
you first moved to which country for this exchange?
So that was Costa Rica because I just spent all my time wanting to get back there. And when I was in Costa Rica, um, I actually told my parents not only, so I'm studying abroad for the semester, but then I'm going to take a semester off because this is too good and I can't just go back to the cornfields of University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. I can't do it. So I took a semester off and I did some advanced Spanish classes there. Just I had to find things to do for an excuse to be there because I needed to stay. And I met my best friend there actually, and we're still best friends to this day. Um, and we took a 3-day bus. I don't know why we didn't fly, but we took a 3-day bus called the Tica bus from Costa Rica up through, you go through Nicaragua, El Salvador, and then up to Guatemala for Semana Santa, because my teacher at that advanced Spanish school that I was in that semester said, well, if you're going to be here and you're going to be here for Easter or Holy Week, you have to go see it in Antigua. Like it's where I'm from. It's the most beautiful processions in the world to celebrate Easter. So we went to Antigua and honestly, I get off like a chicken bus from Guatemala City to Antigua and I look around and there's 3 like volcanoes and like one's erupting in the distance. And there's like all these little indigenous women in the full on, traje indígena. And then also just like 8 feet tall Swedish and Norwegian backpackers. And I'm like, I love this place. There's nothing like this place. All these cobblestone streets. And then of course the processions. And so we promised each other, my best friend and I, that as soon as we graduated, which I did, I went back and I graduated, I moved right back down to Guatemala to live because that was the most different I ever felt up until that point. It was awesome.
Awesome. And a lot of people would consider moving abroad as a pause from the real world, which I find deeply insulting, y'all. What would you say to people who are questioning this year abroad or some time away from the American dream of 80 hours a week at work?
Quick commercial break. Want to manage your money better? Check out my beginner's budget dashboard. It's an easy to use digital tool that helped me economize my lifestyle easily so I could invest over $20,000 in 2020 alone. Check out the link in the description.
Well, yeah, that's a loaded question. There's a lot in there for me to unpack. Let me tell you what. First of all, honestly, if all you want to do right now is take a gap year, like that's what they call it in Europe, it's an actual thing that people do. And I totally encourage you to take a gap year, whether it's after high school, whether it's after college, whether you are 35 and just like, what the hell is life? I need a gap year. I think we call it sabbatical when we're grown up. Whatever you have to do, do it. Like do the year. Here's the thing about that year. If you like it, it will become 2 years. It will become 3. Like you will just settle into a life abroad. You can always go home. Home is always there. But I don't think that moving abroad is a break from reality. What's so wonderful about extracting yourself from this like really hardcore American, dream or brainwashing or whatever you want to call it, whatever is so, it's so extreme because it's like we only have, we're the right way. And then everyone else is like the wrong way or another way. And I think once you go abroad, even if it's just for a year, it has to be for some amount of time so that you get used to things abroad. But once you go, you realize like everything is arbitrary. Every country works how it works. There's no right way. There's no one way. And I think America is a place where I actually just wrote a blog post on this yesterday, but America is a story. The American dream mythology is a story of immigration. So by default, emigration is discouraged. It is seen as wrong because people come to America to have success. But the truth is, success can be had anywhere. And what's the most important thing about living abroad is you can always go home, but taking in what you learn while you're there can up your life skills. Like you don't even know yet the skills that you're going to acquire that will help you so much. Even if you do come home, you come back speaking another language. I speak German now too, like more fluently than Spanish. What? Like that would have never been a thing for me before. You could put me in any situation and I can just kind of like figure it out, because for so many years of my life, I just had to figure stuff out. So I'm not uncomfortable in ambiguity. That's very important for leadership, for job skills. So it's not a break from the real world. You are developing skills and getting different skills than all the other people around you, and it sets you apart. And the other thing I do want to say, because I am passionate about this, after those 15 years, I broke my ankle in Peru. I had already done the Machu Picchu trail, so I didn't break it on the trail. But I broke my ankle, broke up with my partner at the time, 2 days later, end up back in Chicago. A mess because I hadn't even lived in the US in 15 years. And now I'm in Chicago in the middle of winter with a cast on my foot. And the thing is that I was able within a short amount of time to get some really awesome jobs and fall upward solely based on my experience living, working, traveling, and writing abroad. And I think I had better opportunity than I would have had I ever stayed. Even though I didn't even mean to come home and I didn't plan it or anything, I find myself to be in an even better position now. So yeah, you can kind of fall upward in a way that I don't think you could otherwise.
That's a great phrase that I'm going to steal. I also feel like I fell upward because I remember when I was 25, I felt so much shame that my younger sister was making more money than me. My first job out of university in China was $18,000.
Yeah.
My second job in the UK was $33,000. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm so far behind everyone. But now today, because I fell upwards, I've jumped in my career like several times in an amount of time that normally takes people like 5 to 10 years. And it shows in my salary, it shows in my maturity, it shows in like my ability to plan for the future. So for anyone who feels like they're taking a pause on their life, you're actually just kind of doing it a different way. Time is still running. You can tell by the crow's feet. But
it goes.
it continues to go. And what were you doing for work as you moved around the world?
Yeah, so I taught, so I have a bachelor's degree in the teaching of Spanish, but when you move to Guatemala after you graduate, that is useless. But I did work at an internet cafe first, which doesn't exist anymore, so that shows you my age, but it was rad at the time. But I got a job teaching 4th and 5th grade at a bilingual school, so I didn't just teach English, I taught kind of all the core subjects in English for half the day for 4th and 5th graders. And then I moved to Germany and I taught English. Germany is very, regimented and you must follow the rules. And so I already had a degree in the teaching of a language, but I also had to get a TEFL. So I did that. I got a job at Berlitz first. They gave me a visa. I didn't need a TEFL there because I just had to be a native speaker with a bachelor's degree, which I was. But then I also taught at a business school. And then I took this for granted for 3 years, but they were 100 meters apart, these two schools. So I worked like 70 hours a week. So like if the copier went down at one school, I would just go to the other one and make copies. Like I had 2 jobs. I worked so hard. I also did private classes and I taught. It was very stressful for me though, because the career path seemed limited to me, and I'm ambitious and I wanted to do more and better. But the only way for me to like grow my career in that way in Germany at that time was to start teaching like not just English for business, but like business. Like I was 25, I didn't know anything about business at all. So I'm like trying to learn from poorly translated German English textbooks so I could teach it. And my students were smart, so I'm faking half of it. And I was stressed and I was tired and I was like, I don't want to be a school administrator. So what am I going to do? where do I go from here? And I was also really disillusioned with teaching English because in the time that I lived in Germany, I became completely fluent in German, not taking a single class. So it's hard to spend time teaching people English. So I learned from my friends and other people's mistakes. So I would hear the way they would say something in German, oh, we see us tomorrow. And instead of being like, we see us, that's silly. I realized that in German, that's the structure. You just have to know the German words. It's wir sehen uns, and then I could learn from there. So I really learned from everyone's mistakes in their own grammar as like the blueprint. And then I put, the translation of the words on top. I could get into that more, but I realized like, what am I doing teaching when I know that that's not how they're actually going to learn? So I started to lose my focus there. Like, why am I doing this? So I went to get a master's degree at the University of Sussex in Brighton, and I would like to thank the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, although now they are no longer that, for making Sussex so well known. Makes my degree sound fancier. I went to the University of Sussex outside of Brighton. I got a master's in media and culture studies because I realized that what I love more than anything is, at the time I really wanted to do documentaries, but really it's just about telling stories about travel, which I'm thankfully doing still now today. So I really love that. So I got a master's degree. Then I worked at Visit Brighton, Visit England, Visit Britain. And when I was working at Visit Britain, I realized I really want to be a travel writer. It's what I want to follow. It's like a passion. I just want to see if I can make a living as a writer. And so I was paying London rent. And I thought, well, if I can get these freelance articles but pay Guatemalan rent, why don't I do that? And digital nomading was like just started being a thing. So I started a travel blog at the time with my partner at the time to practice my travel writing, and then set off to travel the world for 4 years.
Wow. Did you get tired from living out of a suitcase, or did that just suit you?
Well, I do hate having a lot of stuff, and I
Fair play.
had always been semi-nomad. If you think about it, like, okay, a year or 2 years or 3 years, but I was always moving anyway, so I was kind of conditioned for it. But yeah, it's exhausting. But just a little tip, like a little pro tip. I also wrote another book, but this is years ago. So it's not totally probably the most current, but you can still get it on Amazon. And it's called Break Free, The Ultimate Guide to House Sitting. And what got me through those 4 years was I house sat 18 times on continents around the globe, because, so basically, like, yes, if I had stayed at hostels, like, kill me. Like, it would have been way too much to do that for 4 years, because I was actually like running a business with that blog. Like, I couldn't be messing around with, people, singing to Bob Marley all day. So house sitting, you stay at really nice houses and care for their house and their dog, and they trust you because you run a business, and they know you're not like a weirdo. And so I had pools. I did a house sit at a Tuscan bed and breakfast, closed down, had it all to myself. A beach in Ixcalac, Mexico, which you've definitely never heard of, where the second largest reef in the world after the Great Barrier Reef is by Belize. And that was just my backyard. I just put on some flippers and just right there, I'm snorkeling in the back. And that was for free. All those places I stayed for free. And so, yes, I got tired of living out of a backpack, but if you love the lifestyle, you just have to find your hacks. And one of them is definitely house sitting, because you get to live in these great places, like with proper kitchens and things, and showers and fancy things for free.
Yeah, I cover house sitting and like the beautiful opportunities that it comes with in my How to Move Abroad masterclass. And people are always
Awesome.
shocked because Americans are very distrustful of other people. So they're like, what's the
Yes.
catch? Is someone going to murder me? Why is this person being so nice to me? But it's like, we're probably going to do it because we have a cat and we're going to Argentina for 4 weeks. So I need someone to stay here with my cat. So if you think that I'm going to let a stranger stay in my house, you would be correct.
Right. Right. I'm doing that.
Yes, exactly. And your life seems so nomadic, so glorious, but today you actually have like a more traditional lifestyle. You have a family, you have a partner. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened and how the transition was?
Yeah, it's interesting. So on the one hand, so I broke my ankle in Peru. I end up back in Chicago, and 3 weeks later, a friend of mine runs a large tech conference in San Francisco, but it was the first year of the conference and she just needed butts and seats. So she flew me out there. She also flew a friend of hers, Jenny, out there as well. And wouldn't you know it, she introduced us by email. I see Jenny's badge on her. I have a broken ankle, so I'm like just like limping and kind of pathetic and very hot and just not how I would want to meet my future wife. And I saw her badge and I was like, "Oh, Jenny, I'm supposed to meet with you." And she was like, "Oh yeah." And so from that point on, you know, we were obviously hanging out at the conference and came back to Chicago. And, you know, so I basically met her. We didn't like get together right away, but I met her 3 weeks after I came home from this 15-year life abroad. And in all other parts of my life, honestly, I felt like so lost because I think trying to fit back in at home, I mean, yeah, it was really tough. Like just being around Americans. I mean, there's certain great things, like I didn't need a visa, you know, I could do whatever I wanted, you know, all this stuff, like that was great. And I did have some professional opportunities, which were really good, but it was very hard for me to fit back in. But what Jenny really did, which was great, was she showed me how spectacular the things were that I had done, because I had always just done them. And you know this, when you live abroad, you're around other expats who also do all these things. So it becomes normal in a way because all these people do all these great things and you forget how inspirational like you can be for other people. And I always took that for granted. So yeah, so that was like the greatest gift she gave me, was kind of like reflecting that back to me. We moved to Brooklyn together. And then actually during the pandemic, we have a son now who is 15 months old. And he's so cute.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, it was just like, we can't keep living we had an apartment in a Brooklyn brownstone, like in a really nice area of Brooklyn, super happy. But like what are we going to do? We have basically one room that he can play in. So yeah, I bought a house. I have a mortgage. I feel like a grown-up. I feel like an American. And it's a very interesting time because at the same time, I write this book about how to move abroad. I have clients and I coach them on how to move abroad. I have the podcast about moving abroad. So I live in this very different world right now. But yes, I have definitely the most empathy I've ever had for someone who feels like my life is so much. How am I going to change it to make it in a whole other place? So I kind of have more empathy than I've definitely ever had before, for sure.
Yeah, we're taking a little bit of a different route, but still doing the like domestic life thing. We're gonna be buying a house in Germany together. Like I'm building my relationship here, my family here. So if you want to live abroad and still have like the traditional family, like you can do that. There is nothing stopping you just because you want to do it in a different place, in a different language. Was there any pushback or negative experiences that you might have had on the road as someone part of the LGBTQ community? Because I have quite a few followers who are really concerned about being gay abroad.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yes and no. I think that in the US, you just live where you feel safe, or you don't, and you don't feel safe. But there are bubbles and places that you can go to feel safe, and you have community, of course. Living abroad can be kind of strange in different countries. So for example, in Guatemala, or a place where you're really different, sometimes you're just the crazy foreigner anyway, right? You're just like the gringa, or if you're in Thailand, you're the Falang or Farang, I can't remember what it is in Thailand or Cambodia, but you're just like the crazy expat person. So all the stuff you do is second to the fact that you're super different. So if you're queer, if you're whatever, if you're in any other way different, it kind of falls after the fact that you are just the weird foreigner person. And that's really convenient because you are already so different in many ways that you just live your life, you know. I wouldn't say I'm ever super out or super affectionate or whatever, but you can feel pretty safe there. Sometimes in a country, for example, like Germany, which otherwise is so socially with it, right? It's not as liberal as you would think for the gay community. Like, okay, it's there and you can be open and stuff, but gay marriage only just passed, I feel like. And, you know, it's not as liberal as you might think in that way, because some countries are still, whether they realize they're not, very traditional. But I don't feel any less safe anywhere else really than in the US, because what you don't find abroad in do not go to places that hurt gay people. Like I get it. Like, do not move to countries where your life is actually in jeopardy. There are those countries. Do not move there. Do not make that your choice unless you absolutely have to. But I feel like the US, there is more risk sometimes being here because people are very actively anti-gay in certain ways and places that I never felt that anywhere I ever lived. So while people might not like it or might be a little foreign to it or whatever, here in the US is actually where, and I always say this about lots of things, guns, shootings.
Yes.
I feel less safe here. And I want to just say that because Americans, like you said, don't trust, but there is a lot of violence here. And you don't have that kind of violence in many places where you might move to abroad, for sure.
I cannot.
But don't let your being gay stop you. Like, screw them. Damn that. Don't do that. Go live your life as big and loud as you want to, and feel safe and find your community. And there is community everywhere abroad, really. You can find it. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, it's totally fine. One of my friends and followers and customers, she actually lived in Egypt for a portion of her life. She went to the international school, and there was a whole gay community in Egypt, which is historically not very friendly to the gay community. And so people are able to create pockets of support when you need to. I even saw queer people in Dubai where you can physically be harmed for this.
Right.
So whatever background you are, or whatever your orientation is, like, there are places in the world that is going to be for you that will probably be easier than in America. So don't let this stop you from figuring out where your place in the world is. But yeah, what a wonderful opportunity to meet you, Jess. We're coming to the end of our show. Can you tell everyone where to find you and what sort of projects you have coming up so they can follow up with you?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. It's been really great. Time always flies when you love what you do and you love talking about it with people who love the same things. So thank you. So I'm on, you can find me on my website, which is jessicadrucker.com, JESSICADRUCKER.com. And my Instagram is @JessicaVDrucker. You can find me there. I've got the podcast on season 2. We're launching December, called Adventure Calls. Please go ahead and subscribe and listen to some of those. I'm a big proponent of, if this is your dream, find your team. And your team is not your friends and family at home. Your team are people like Vanessa and I who have done it. We can help you and we can support you. And that's your team looking outwards. So you'll find all of your support from podcasts like mine, podcasts like Vanessa's, my book, her How to Move Abroad masterclass is awesome. And then of course, I've got the book, so How to Move Abroad and Why It's the Best Thing You'll Do. Because
honestly, it will be.
Yeah, it will be. And this the book is great. Only, obviously I think it's great. I wrote it, fine. But the book is great because it is all of the how-tos and all the details that you worry about and things to think through. And you talk about this, I'm sure. Being American is a little bit more complicated financially and tax-wise than it is. And that's a whole can of worms we could talk about another time. But my book, at least it gives you like a little bit of a foundation and things to kind of think through in that capacity. Do not let any of the details take away your dream of moving abroad. You will figure it out. And I'll end just by saying 9 million Americans live abroad. 9 million, 8.7 at last count. So you're not, the first one to break through a path. It doesn't make you not unique, but people have done it. You can figure out how to do it. So don't let anything like a little detail stop you.
Yeah, and if Jess can do it without a book, a masterclass, and all these cool podcasts, like, what is stopping you guys? You have all the resources. So until next time, thanks so much, Jess. And I'll be linking all of Jessica's resources, books, and places to find her down below in the comments.
Want to win a free finance-related digital product valued anywhere from $15 to $300? Just subscribe and leave a review on iTunes with your name. I'll announce the winner each month on the podcast, and you can DM me on Instagram to claim your prize. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I'll see you next week.